Good afternoon. As everybody can tell at this, my name is, well, you can't tell, but my name is Sasha Fletcher. I'm a Staff Sergeant in the United States Army, and I'm stationed here at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I figured for my project, I was going to do a little bit of brief history on this post that I'm at. It was built in 1827. It was actually founded by Captain Lewis and Captain Clark, as we all know them, for doing the Oregon Trail. They came through the area right here by Kansas, right over the Missouri River, and they found a perfect spot for it. Now, in the area that they were at, they also reached a lot of cold climates, hot climates. Kansas has a lot of different ones. This is about what the region looked like during the time of Captain Lewis and Captain Clark. Um, they had a lot of lush land. It was actually extremely fertile for crops. There are trees. There is a lot of game in the area. One of the major things that they did have is buffalo, as we can tell by this big hunk of monster of an animal. They still roam around the area quite a bit. As we know, buffalo were also hunted by the Indians. There were a lot of Indians in the area. It wasn't just a West thing. Everybody thinks the West is over towards California, but no, it actually started right here at Leavenworth. Now, after Captain Lewis and Clark got here, they started shuffling in people. The fort actually didn't get established first. It was the town, then the fort, but they came through the ferry. There was no bridges or anything across. They used the ferry system to come across where they would get supplies, and they bring those supplies over, and over time, of course, everything was established. Now, they used to use oxen. Of course, they used horses as well. As you can tell, the port was actually built. That exact port that's there is actually right here on Fort Leavenworth, just down by the river. That is still owned by the fort itself. Those islands are not there anymore in this little picture, but they also used buffalo. Now, over time, the later half of the 18th century, I think about 1818 or 1880, sorry, trains got developed. The trains were actually commissioned by the United States Army to come and build a bridge across so that they could start bringing in manpower a lot faster. The more they built, the more the American Indian Wars actually started pushing. Now, the trains used to bring in prisoners as well. As you can see right there, that is the old prison of Fort Leavenworth. It's the largest prison in the United States military, and it's not just housed by Army, but by every branch out there. Um, Fort Leavenworth also has a lot of history with it, with soldiers themselves. The Buffalo Soldiers got started here in July 28th of 1866. Now, the Buffalo Soldiers were the first African American soldiers allowed to be in the United States military, period. So their history starts here, and our post is quite proud of it. That building right there is to us known as Building 52, but that is part of the old fort. It is a historical monument of Leavenworth itself. That middle part right there is the gates that they used to close at night. There were not as many windows. This was more of a sealed wall side. Here's part of the old wall that was built in 1832. Now you can see all the slits and everything. The larger slits were for the cannons. The smaller slits were for the gunmen, which would give them a lot of protection at the same time as it would allow them to fire out, and they were able to keep a lot of casualties from happening. This is one of the overlooking points with one of the corked cannons. Now, this is actually where the cannons would sit. When the American Indians would come across and they would try and storm, they'd have to cross the Missouri River. Now, the good thing about this location were higher ground, and they would have to come uphill. So we had the advantage on this, so that's why it was built. Now, Lewis and Clark weren't the only famous people that were here. This post is actually riddled with a lot of famous, good and bad. Of course, you can see General Grant was one of them. General Petraeus, during his better part of his career. Now, Major Hassan, the shooter from Fort Hood, and of course Manning. Now, Chelsea Manning is a current resident. This is the main part everybody knows Fort Leavenworth for, is the prison. Now, this is the old prison. It was established in 1845 and is the oldest prison in this region of the United States. It is the oldest prison in the United States military. As I stated before, it houses more than just Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines. The detention barracks itself is only armed and occupied for soldier-wise only by the Army. We're the ones who manage it. It used to house over 2,500 soldiers, airmen, Navy, Marines in the major complex up there. The smaller houses were for the staff. Now, the Western Wall is our most famous wall. The Western Wall is where the in-processing would come in. When the soldiers were released, they would come out the front, but this is where they would come in. They would come in through this wall, and this is the first place they would see their administration, for their pay, for everything else. It would come through this Western Wall. So this is the dreaded Western Wall. And this is one of the towers before it was decommissioned, that they overlooked the Western Wall. Every gunman in Fort Leavenworth at the towers are fully armed. There are no rubber bullets here on the post since we are under military mandate, not state. We are allowed to shoot to kill, not shoot to wound. This is a newer picture of the fort, of the DB, I'm sorry. And now inside the DB, we have our Mission Command Center. The Army doesn't waste very much, so they turned it into Mission Command Center since these walls are historic now. They went in there, and this is where a lot of intelligence comes from. I can't really explain why or what, but that's where it goes to. Now, this is, of course, the new detention barracks. The one that I was able to show you, this one right here, is actually for soldiers, airmen, Navy, and Marines, and even Coast Guard that do offenses 6 months or 6 years and less. The ones that are lifers, Major Hassan, Manning, I cannot show you that DB for disclosure. Now, in the last part of this lovely tour, I'm showing you the International Learning Education College of the Military. This is a college that's actually housed by every allied nation, France, everybody, Germany, that is going to be taught our allied nation strategics for the United States military. So when we help them in combat or anything else, we can go ahead and teach them the right ways. As you can tell, that is the end. I do apologize. I have way more to talk about, but I'm trying to hold with the lessons of the class. So everybody have a great day, and